This guy right over here flipped a dying magazine into $1 billion music juggernaut. And then he did it about 400 more times. I'm talking about Richard Branson. This is the space traveling, deep sea diving, brand building billionaire. Y'all know Richard Branson. I'm going to talk today about how he clawed his way to the top against all odds. And you know what? These are not stories you've heard before because I don't like talking about stuff that everyone else talks about, that all the people in the world already know. We're going to talk about his origin story, the very, very beginning, and the formulas he has used, and one specific formula that I think is a killer formula that you need to hear. I'm going to tell you all about that in just a second. Before we get there, my name is Jon Davids. I'm the author of Marketing Superpowers, Build a Brand So Good That Getting Customers Feels Like Magic, because that's how it should feel, my friends. The book is out June 18th, 2024. You can get it at marketingsuperpowersbook.com or wherever you get books, ebook, audiobook, actual physical paperback book like I'm holding in my hand right now. Make sure you get marketingsuperpowersbook.com. And of course, if you like the content I'm putting out, make sure to subscribe, like, share with a friend. You can always go to jondavids.com, get on the newsletter. And right now, let's talk about Richard Branson. All right, so let's rewind all the way back to the year 1970. Richard Branson is running a student magazine, but business is bad. Business sucks. You see, he has readers, but nobody wants to advertise. Nobody is advertising in this little student magazine that he's got running. And he needs cash or he's done. There's no magazine left. And that's when he gets a brilliant idea, and it's going to be the start of a lot of brilliant ideas. If nobody else wants to sell stuff to his audience, his readers in his magazine, Richard will do it himself. And he's got just the product that everybody is going to love, music. So our young hustler here scrounges up some records, he gets them wholesale and starts promoting them in his magazine. And all of a sudden, they start selling. And he calls this new business Virgin Mail Order Records. And it's about to be very, very big. So selling records one by one by mail is a good start. But you see, little Richard wants to see his customers in person. He wants to build more of a community. So he opens up a record store. It's called Virgin Records. Now he's selling even more music. And that triggers a brand new idea. What happens if we just make music too? We already have the audience. We already have people who want to buy music. Why not just make the stuff? Now, I want to pause here for a second because this is really interesting. What we're talking about here is vertical integration. We're talking about owning every piece of the stack. And this is a young guy. I don't know how old he was exactly. I could probably do the math. Let's just say he was in his early 20s or late teens. Here's a guy who is starting with one asset, probably fumbling along. I'm not going to give him any credit. You don't really give entrepreneurs credit for the very first thing because usually they just kind of start something. But once you figure something out, that's when you really start getting credit. Entrepreneurship and business building is fundamentally about solving problems. And problem number one was we have an audience. We need to make money from the audience. Advertisers don't want in. So what happens? You go vertical. You make a product to sell them. Okay, now you have that. Now you have people that are buying the product. What do? You try to figure out more ways to sell the product. You get into channel strategy. A physical retail store is a channel. So now we have an audience, a product, and a channel. What do you do next? You go to the source. So now you're actually a manufacturer of the product, right? If you're going to make the music, you're actually manufacturing the product. You see how we're already stacking all these pieces into the vertical scope here? All right, this is Virgin. Virgin's on fire. Let's get back to the story. Within 1 year, one of his tracks is topping the charts. One of the early hits was Tubular Bells, a song by Mike Oldfield. There's a whole story about how this song went viral. I'm not going to go too deep into that story right now, but he's actually getting play and he's selling lots of records with a hit song. Don't forget, the music business is a hit-driven business. So once you get a hit, you can ride that and milk it for a lot. Now, over the next couple decades, he signs the Sex Pistols, Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, Janet Jackson. Now, after a while, after a couple decades here, Richard is a full-fledged hit maker, but he's just warming up. All right, so let's go to 1984 here. Richard's flight was just canceled. He's pissed. He is a busy businessman. He is a record executive. There are places to be and deals to do. He needs to get into the air. So he scrambles to charter his own jet. and then he sells the empty seats to other stranded passengers. Think about that. You're in an airport, your flight was just canceled. You maybe have the means to get a jet, or maybe you don't have the means to charter a private jet, but you actually get your hands on a jet and then go to all the other passengers, the captive customers who are also stuck there, who are also pissed, and you say, hey, you've got a plane ticket? If you can chip in a couple $100, you can get a seat on my airplane. You got somewhere to be? You're going to take that ticket, all right? So he sells the empty seats to other stranded passengers. He's flying up. It is a party at 30,000 feet in the air, Virgin style. Our high-flying mogul gets another idea in midair. This could actually be a good business. So he lands in the British Virgin Islands, and he dials up Boeing, and he ends up leasing a 747. Now, I'm going to tell you this full story at the end of this episode because it's such a critical story and a linchpin in business building. So we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. Then he splashes red paint on his new Boeing 747. It is Virgin Atlantic Airways, and Richard Branson is officially the owner of an airline. So to understand how Virgin works today, the big picture, you need to understand that now Virgin is not really a company. It's a private equity firm wrapped in a global brand, soaked in startup juice. He's got the juju. In the last 5 decades, Virgin has put its name on 400 companies, telecom, healthcare, finance, and beyond. Sometimes they build a business. Sometimes they invest in an existing business and rebrand it. Sometimes it's just a licensing deal. A lot of those 400 companies, like you may have in your city a Virgin radio station, or a Virgin telecom business, or a Virgin credit card, or a Virgin healthcare center, or a Virgin retail store, or a Virgin music store. A lot of those, not all, but a lot of those are just licenses. Somebody else wants to create a telecom brand and they don't want to call it Jimmy John's great telecom brand. They want to say it's called Virgin, right? Radio stations are a big one. There's a lot of Virgin radio stations. Those are just licenses from the Virgin company. As for building things off the ground, I would imagine that these days Virgin is not doing too many startups. Maybe they've got some kind of startup studio model. But my guess, if I had to say, it's a private company, so a lot of this is not public. I would guess that the licensing business is great because it's pure royalty, cash cow type business. The risk there is that you could potentially dilute the Virgin name if the operators of those businesses with your licenses are not very good, or if there's too many businesses with your name on them. That's not very good. You see a lot of that happening. That happened with Gucci back in the 80s. It happened with Disney in the 70s and 80s. They over-licensed their name. All of a sudden, the brand goes to crap, so they start to reel it in. But I would imagine they probably partner up with great operators and invest and build, not from 0 or 1, but probably from 5 or 10. So businesses that are already kind of running, they come in and they build them up. I would imagine that's how most of the business is done today. In 2023, Virgin Group was valued at $3.7 billion. Now, a few observations here. This all might sound really, really complicated, but it's actually a really simple model. In 1970, Richard Branson built a community, right? He had a community. That's what that very first magazine was. It was a community. That's what magazines are in general. Then he figured out how to make money off of it. He figured out monetization, started a record business, started a record store, started a record label, on and on and on. And next, he just kept reinvesting the cash over and over and over again. Now, I'm the customer community guy. I've built Influicity on communities. I built Influicity by telling brands, you need to build customer communities so that you don't need to stay being a $10 million brand or a $20 million brand. You should be a $50 million brand. You need to have a customer community to do that today. This whole book is about customer communities, marketing superpowers, talking about how to do that, how to create $100 million brands with community. You can see Richard doing that from start to finish, right? When you start off with the channel, with the customers that you can sell to, actually coming up with a really good product, or maybe you buy a product, or maybe you manufacture it, whatever it is, you bring a product to them and you already have the captive customer. How much easier is it to do that than to have a great product and then go out and have to sell door to door and find the business, right? Starting with the customer, starting with the community is always the way to go. When you have a community, you have options, and that's how the best brands are built. In Richard's case, it all started with one simple magazine. Now, I want to tell you guys about this amazing story about how he started Virgin Atlantic Airways. So the story goes that he was in the air, that everything I told you was true. He was in the air. He ended up getting a bunch of people onto the airplane by chartering the jet and selling the seats. And then he gets this idea and he calls up Boeing after he lands in the British Virgin Islands and he leases a plane on the phone. Now, I tell the story very quick. It actually is a little more than that. So here's what actually happened. He dialed up Boeing over and over and over again. He just called the main number, the main 1-800 number. Hey, this is Boeing. How can we help you? Reception desk. Hey, I want to lease an airplane. Who can I talk to? And he got hung up on and told to screw off over and over and over again, because you don't just call Boeing and say that you want to buy an airplane, right? No one does that. So finally, after a whole bunch of calls, after a whole bunch of cold calling, the receptionist puts him through to the general manager of the region, which in this case, I guess, was the UK, the United Kingdom. And he gets on the phone with them and he says, I want to buy an airplane. I want to lease an airplane. And they say to him, we have one customer in every country. And where you are, our customer is British Airways, BA. And you, sir, are not BA, so we can't sell you anything. This call is over. And he says, okay, fair enough, but just humor me. I have a question. Do you have any airplanes that are sitting around? Maybe they're a little older, you can't lease them, and you need to get them off your hands. And the man on the other end of the phone said, yeah, in fact, we do. He says, okay, can I lease that airplane? And in the end, he actually got the lease done. But here's the cool part. Here's where it gets really cool, because you might think to yourself, how did he buy an airplane? Oh, he's rich. He makes it easy for him. No. He did it with no money down. He started an airline with no money. Here's how. He got the airplane, and he got it on terms that he could pay for it over the course of years, right? So the payments themselves, it was not like $50 million on day one or $75 million on day one. It was like small down payments along the way. But here's what he did. He pre-sold the tickets. So think about how airlines work. You don't book a ticket on an airline the day you're going to fly. You book it 3, 4, 5 months in advance, and you pay for it 3, 4, 5 months in advance. So you get the money long before you ever have to deliver the service. That's called a negative cash conversion cycle. I've talked to you guys about this before. When you have a negative cash conversion cycle, it means that you actually get the cash before you have to spend the cash. So here he is getting cash in the door months before he has to deliver a product. Then, when he actually has to deliver the product, he already has the money to pay the pilot, pay for the fuel, and contribute towards the cash flow needed to pay the lease payments. And so here he is immediately selling flights. And of course, he's got the branding experience, so he knows how to make it cool and fun. People already know Virgin, so he's going to get publicity. He does all kinds of fun things. There's a video of him smashing the bottle of champagne on the very first 747. And so here he is figuring out the economics of it, which is I basically need no money down because I'm going to sell my product long before I have to deliver the service. That's going to pay for the fuel. That's going to pay for the pilots. That's going to pay for the airport fee. That's going to pay for the runway fee. That's going to pay for the lease payment. And I'm going to do it over and over and over again. And that, my friends, is why I love Richard Branson. Not because of Virgin, not because of the billionaire status, not because of the island, not because of any of that. I couldn't care less about any of that. I love negative cash conversion cycles, and I love the fact that you can start a business like an airline with no money down. So if Richard Branson can do that, I don't want to hear anything. I need to raise venture capital because I want to start a tech company. Get out of here. Get out of here. You can build an airline with no money down. Oof. Gives me chills. I love that stuff. That's what I think about Virgin. That's what I think about Richard Branson. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, share. Of course, pick up Marketing Superpowers at marketingsuperpowersbook.com, and I will talk to you guys next time.